Darius Kane's first thought when he woke up was that his skull had been replaced with a malfunctioning reactor core. His second thought was that someone was in his apartment, someone who definitely wasn't supposed to be there. A dull, crimson glow flickered from the far corner of the room, illuminating the silhouette of a tall, slender woman. She stood with an eerie stillness, her long ears twitching slightly, as if listening to something beyond his range of perception. Darius groaned and rolled onto his side, clutching his forehead. His mouth tasted like synthetic whiskey and regret. "Look, if you're here to kill me, at least let me get a cup of coffee first." The woman chuckled, a low velvety sound that sent a shiver down his spine. "Oh, love, you've always been dramatic." His body went rigid. That voice, there was something unsettlingly familiar about it, something that curled around the edges of his mind, like an old song, half remembered. He forced himself upright, squinting through the dim light. The woman stepped forward. The neon blue glow from his hollow clock illuminated her face, a face too perfect, too sharp, as if sculpted by an artist who didn't believe in imperfections. Her crimson eyes gleamed with a knowing amusement. And then there were the ears, long, elegant, and slightly pointed, twitching in a way that was distinctly not human. Darius blinked. "Well, either I'm still drunk, or I just woke up in the wrong genre of my life." She smirked. "You always did use humor as a defense mechanism." He ran a hand through his messy black hair, trying to piece together how this situation could possibly make sense. "Okay, lady, mind telling me why you broke into my apartment? Or are we skipping straight to the murder part?" She tilted her head, the movement eerily fluid, almost predatory. "Darius," she said softly, taking a step closer. "I'm your wife." Silence. Darius stared at her, brain short-circuiting. Then he laughed, a dry, incredulous laugh that echoed through the cramped apartment. "Right. And I'm the Emperor of Jupiter. Lady, I don't even have a girlfriend, let alone a—" He stopped mid-sentence as a thought struck him like a meteor to the face. His gaze snapped back to hers. "Wait, did I get married while I was drunk?" A single, elegant brow arched. "No, love. We've been married for years." Darius stared at her again, this time with genuine unease creeping into his veins. "Okay," he said, lifting a finger. "Let's break this down. 1, I have no memory of you. 2, you have vampire eyes and alien ears. And 3, did I mention I have no memory of you?" She sighed, folding her arms. "That's because your memories were stolen by Lord Zyros." Darius frowned. "That sounds made up." "It's not. It definitely sounds made up." Vilara, because that was apparently her name, let out a long, suffering sigh, as if she'd been through this before. She reached into the folds of her sleek, dark coat and pulled out a small, smooth device. It hummed to life in her palm, projecting a holographic image into the air. Darius squinted at the flickering display. It was a video, and not just any video. It was him, standing beside her. His breath caught. In the recording, he looked different, younger maybe. His usual scruffy look had been replaced by something more refined, his dark hair neatly combed back, his eyes sharper, more determined. He was wearing some kind of high-tech armor, and his arm was slung casually around Valara's shoulders as she smirked at him. They looked happy. Darius swallowed. "Okay, that's some impressive hollow editing." Valara gave him a flat look. "It's not fake. Look, lady, Valara, whatever. If I was actually married to a space vampire, don't you think I'd remember that?" "You would," she admitted, "if Zyros hadn't erased everything." He rubbed his temples. "Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, that this isn't some elaborate prank. What does this Lord Zyros guy want with me?" Before Valara could answer, a low, rhythmic beeping filled the room. Darius stiffened. That was his security system. Valara's expression darkened. "They found us." "Who found us?" "The bounty hunters," Darius groaned. "Of course I have bounty hunters after me. Why wouldn't I?" The walls of his apartment trembled as something heavy slammed against the outer corridor. A voice crackled through a speaker. "Come out quietly, Kane, and we won't turn your bones into spare parts." Darius exhaled through his nose. Charming. Valara reached into her coat and pulled out a sleek, alien-looking weapon. Stay behind me. Yeah, no offense, but I'm not really the stay-behind type. She shot him a sideways glance. Oh, I know. With a deafening blast, the apartment door exploded inward. Smoke and debris filled the air as figures in heavy armor stormed inside. Valara moved faster than Darius could register, her body a blur as she launched herself at the nearest attacker. Darius ducked as a plasma bolt barely missed his head. He scrambled behind his couch, yanking open the compartment where he kept his blaster, because even a washed-up ex-pilot like him wasn't dumb enough to live on Mars Colony Delta 4 unarmed. Valara, I hope you have a plan, he yelled over the chaos. She twisted mid-air, slamming a boot into a bounty hunter's helmet, sending them crashing into the wall. Yes, she called back. Step 1, survive. Step 2, run. Step 3, steal a ship. Darius fired a shot, hitting one of the mercs in the knee. I like step 3. Valara grabbed him by the wrist and yanked him toward the blown-out window. Then let's go. Darius took one look at the 5-story drop. Yeah, no. Valara didn't give him a choice. With a smirk, she wrapped an arm around his waist and jumped. Darius screamed all the way down. Darius had never really considered the aerodynamics of being thrown out of a 5th-story window by a vampire woman who claimed to be his wife. Now, as he plummeted toward the neon-lit streets of Mars Colony Delta 4, it occurred to him that this was a significant oversight. This is a terrible plan, he yelled. Valara, who had somehow managed to look graceful midair, just grinned. You used to love this. Pretty sure I didn't. The wind roared around them as they fell, and Darius caught a brief glimpse of the bounty hunters above, leaning over the shattered remains of his apartment window. One of them aimed a plasma rifle at him. Oh, come on! Before he could finish cursing his luck, Valara twisted in midair and yanked him toward a hovering cargo drone passing beneath them. The metal platform wasn't exactly designed to catch falling idiots, but it was better than splattering across the street like a bad mural. They hit the drone hard, rolling across its surface as the vehicle wobbled from the sudden impact. Darius groaned, staring up at the Martian night sky, dotted with smog-covered stars and floating holograms, advertising everything from cybernetic limb replacements to genetically modified houseplants. That was awful, he muttered. Valara sat up, completely unbothered. You'll get used to it again. Again? Darius rolled onto his side, glaring at her. Are you telling me this was a regular occurrence in our so-called marriage? Valara grinned, flashing just the hint of fangs. You always enjoyed the excitement. Darius groaned. Sounds like past me had brain damage. A plasma bolt whizzed past them, frying a nearby billboard that had been advertising something called spicy space noodles, now with 50% more heat death. Less talking, more running, Valara said. Darius peeked over the edge of the drone. The bounty hunters had already recovered and were pursuing them on sleek black hoverbikes, their weapons glowing menacingly. Great, Darius muttered. Why is it never tax collectors chasing me? Because you never paid taxes, Valara said, yanking him up by his arm. Fair point. The drone wobbled as more plasma fire struck it, sending sparks flying. Valara grabbed his wrist and sprinted toward the edge. Jump, she commanded. Darius let out a strangled laugh. You know what? No, I just jumped out of a window. I'm done jumping. Suit yourself, Valara said cheerfully, right before she shoved him off the drone. Darius screamed, flailing wildly as they dropped onto the roof of a passing hover truck. He landed hard, rolling across the metallic surface and nearly toppling over the edge. Valara, meanwhile, landed with the elegance of a cat and casually stretched, like this was a routine Tuesday. You have to stop doing that, Darius wheezed. Valara helped him up. Then start jumping on your own. Darius swayed slightly, staring at her. Are you enjoying this? She tilted her head, ears twitching slightly. A little. Before Darius could come up with an appropriately dramatic complaint, the bounty hunters accelerated toward them, their hover bikes cutting through the air like sleek black knives. The leader, a heavily armored brute with cybernetic arms, barked a command into his comms. Target secured. Lord Zyros wants him alive. Darius felt a chill crawl up his spine. There was that name again. Zeros. the supposed memory-stealing warlord who had apparently deleted an entire marriage from his brain. Before he could process the implications, Valara reached into her coat and pulled out a sleek, metallic device. She pressed a button, and the air around them rippled. Darius barely had time to react before a ship decloaked above them. A sleek, gunmetal gray spacecraft with a design that screamed stolen military tech. "Is that ours?" Darius asked, eyes wide. "It is now," Valara said, grabbing him by the waist. Before he could protest the sudden invasion of personal space, she launched them off the truck with a powerful leap, landing smoothly on the ship's open boarding ramp. Darius, on the other hand, flopped onto the floor like a dying fish. Valara hit a control panel, and the ramp closed behind them as the ship's engines roared to life. The bounty hunters opened fire, plasma bolts slamming against the ship's shields, but Valara was already sprinting toward the cockpit. Darius groaned, dragging himself to his feet. "I hate everything about this day." "You'll survive," Valara called over her shoulder, not the ringing endorsement I was hoping for. By the time he stumbled into the cockpit, Valara was already flipping switches and bringing the ship online. The control panels flickered to life, filling the space with an eerie blue glow. Darius plopped into the co-pilot's seat, still catching his breath. "So, do you actually know how to fly this thing?" Valara gave him a sideways look. "Do you?" Darius hesitated. "Oh, no." "Then don't question me," she said sweetly, yanking the control stick. The ship shot forward like a bullet, leaving the bounty hunters scrambling to follow. Darius gripped the edges of his seat. "Can we not do the reckless flying thing?" Valara smirked. "You used to be a pilot, love. You should feel at home." Darius glared at her. "I also used to have memories. Let's focus on now." The ship swerved sharply through the maze of neon-lit skyscrapers, dodging between cargo freighters and high-speed transit lines. The bounty hunters followed in tight formation, their hoverbikes weaving through the city like predatory drones. "All right, hotshot," Darius said, scanning the control panels. "Any idea how we lose these guys?" Valara didn't answer immediately. Her eyes flickered with something sharp and calculating. "I have an idea," she said finally, "but you're not going to like it." Darius exhaled through his nose. "Valara, I have already been thrown out of a window today. It can't get worse." Valara smiled. "We'll see about that." And with that, she turned the ship upward, directly toward the towering skyline. Darius's stomach lurched. "Oh, no, no, no!" The bounty hunters followed, accelerating to match their climb. The ship shot past skyscrapers, past the upper levels of the colony, heading straight for the massive, glowing energy dome that separated Mars Colony Delta 4 from the cold, suffocating void of space. Darius' eyes widened. "Wait, are we—" Valara grinned. "Yes!" The bounty hunters realized a second too late. Valara yanked the ship through the dome's emergency maintenance gap, something only someone with very illegal access codes could do. The bounty hunters, however, were not so lucky. Their hoverbikes slammed against the energy barrier like bugs on a windshield. Darius slumped in his seat, gasping. "I hate you," Valara smirked. "You'll get over it." As the ship sped into the darkness of space, Darius let out a long, exhausted sigh. He had a feeling things were only going to get worse. Darius had a rule about space travel, and it was a very simple one. Never fly into open space with someone who just threw you out of a window. Yet here he was, strapped into the co-pilot seat of a stolen starship, speeding away from Mars Colony Delta 4 with an alien vampire woman who claimed to be his wife. The universe, he decided, had a really messed up sense of humor. He exhaled and rubbed his face. "All right, let's start with the basics. Where exactly are we going?" Valara, who had taken the pilot seat with all the confidence of someone who either knew what they were doing or was very good at pretending, tapped a few glowing controls. "Somewhere safe." Darius gave her a flat look. "See, I don't love how vague that is." She smirked without looking at him. "It's a habit. You used to tell me you found my mysterious nature alluring." Darius scoffed. "Yeah? Well, current me finds it annoying." Valara chuckled but didn't answer. Instead, she reached for a lever above her head. "We're making a jump to FTL. Hold on. Hold on to—" The ship lurched as it shot into faster-than-light speed. Darius was immediately flattened against his seat as stars outside stretched into impossibly long streaks of white. His stomach twisted like someone had just decided to rearrange all his organs for fun. He groaned. "I hate this part." Valara grinned, completely unaffected. "You used to love this part, too." Darius opened one eye. Did past me have any self-preservation instincts? Debatable. With a final shudder, the ship stabilized, settling into the eerie calm of FTL travel. The streaks outside became a smooth tunnel of blue and white, stretching infinitely ahead of them. Darius let out a breath. "Okay, south. Now that we're not being shot at, maybe you can explain a few things." Valara leaned back in her seat, her crimson eyes glowing faintly in the dim cockpit lights. "What do you want to know?" Darius gestured broadly. "Let's start with the obvious. Who exactly is Lord Zyros? Why does he want me? And why do I apparently have the memory retention of a defective toaster?" Valara studied him for a moment, then let out a slow breath. "Lord Zyros is a warlord, a powerful one. He rules the Outlands, the lawless fringe of the galaxy. He's a master of bioengineering, cybernetics, and—" She hesitated. "Mind manipulation." Darius frowned. "Mind manipulation?" She nodded. "Zyros doesn't just conquer planets. He rewrites people, wipes memories, implants false ones, erases entire histories. He doesn't just control territory, he controls minds." Darius swallowed. "And let me guess, he did this to me?" Valara's gaze softened. "Yes." He let out a slow breath, trying to process that. "All right, let's say I believe you. Why? Why would some galactic warlord care about me?" Valara hesitated again. "Because you weren't just some pilot, Darius. You were a revolutionary. You and we were leading a resistance against him." Darius blinked. "Come again?" "You were one of the best pilots in the galaxy," Valara continued, her voice steady but tinged with something that sounded almost like longing. "You helped build the rebellion. We fought together for years. We were unstoppable." Darius snorted. "Yeah, well, past me sounds like a reckless idiot." Valara's lips twitched. "You were. But you were my reckless idiot." Darius coughed, feeling unexpectedly warm under her gaze. "Okay, well, still processing the whole freedom fighter thing. But let's focus on the part where my entire memory got turned into space dust. How did Zyros do that?" Valara's expression darkened. "He captured you, tortured you, and then—" She exhaled. "He wiped you. Completely. Erased everything we were. Everything you were." Darius's stomach twisted. Valara leaned forward, eyes burning with quiet intensity. "I searched for you for years, Darius. Years. I thought you were dead. And then a month ago, I found traces of you, alive, but living on Mars Colony Delta 4 under a fake identity." Darius hesitated. "So what, you just showed up to drag me back into this mess?" "I showed up to save you," she corrected, "because Zyros isn't done with you." Darius let out a humorless laugh. "Great. Just what I needed. More problems." She smirked. "You always did attract trouble." He exhaled, leaning back in his chair. "All right. Let's say I believe all of this. And let's say I was some kind of rebel hero. Why not just leave me? Why risk your life coming after someone who doesn't even remember you?" Valara's expression softened. "Because you're not just some rebel hero. You're my husband." Darius felt something tighten in his chest. He held her gaze for a long moment, then sighed. "You really expect me to believe that?" Valara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. She held it up between two fingers. "This was yours." Darius frowned. Valara pressed a small button on the side of the ring, and suddenly a tiny hologram flickered to life. It was a video. Him and her. They were standing on a lush green planet, one Darius definitely didn't recognize. He looked different in the video. Stronger, more confident, and happy. In the hologram, Valara leaned in, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "I love you, you idiot," she murmured. Holo Darius laughed, wrapping an arm around her. Yeah, you just like me for my good looks." Valara smirked. "Well, that is a bonus." The hologram flickered out. Darius swallowed. He could feel his heart pounding, his brain screaming at him that this was insane. But deep down, buried beneath the confusion and sarcasm and sheer what the hellness of this situation, something inside him ached. Valara watched him carefully. "I know this is a lot," she said softly, "but I promise you, Darius, I will help you remember, no matter how long it takes." Darius exhaled slowly. Then after a long pause, he nodded. "All right," he muttered. "Guess I'm in." Valara smiled, and against all odds, something about that smile made Darius feel like maybe, just maybe, he had made the right choice. The first thing Darius learned about space travel with an alien vampire woman who claimed to be his wife was that she snored. Not a delicate, dignified snore. Number A, full-bodied, rumbling, borderline industrial snore. The kind of sound that made you question whether the ship had an engine problem. He had tried to ignore it, rolling onto his side in the tiny bunk he had claimed, but sleep was impossible. Between the adrenaline crash, the whole I was apparently a rebel hero, and also married revelation, and the very real possibility that a space warlord was hunting him down, rest seemed like a luxury his brain had no interest in granting him. Groaning, he sat up and rubbed his face. "This is my life now," he muttered, "running from bounty hunters with a woman who can probably rip my spine out and uses my ship as a snore amplifier." Valara, sprawled across the bunk opposite him, did not respond. Darius sighed and stood, deciding he might as well get a better look at the ship. If he was going to be stuck on it, he should at least know if it had anything useful. Maybe a coffee maker. Maybe a self-destruct button, if things got really bad. The ship was small but sleek, clearly military-grade, despite the fact that Valara had somehow stolen it. The cockpit was compact but well-equipped, with advanced scanning arrays and weapon systems that he definitely didn't know how to use. The cargo bay held an assortment of crates, some with labels he recognized, some written in languages that probably required extra throat muscles to pronounce. But it was the engine room that made his eyebrows shoot up. "Whoa," he muttered, stepping inside. The ship's core wasn't standard at all. Instead of the usual fusion-based drive, it had something far more advanced. A gravitic compression core, the kind usually reserved for top-tier warships. "This thing shouldn't even exist on a ship this size," he whispered. It was powerful, too powerful, and dangerous. If this thing went critical, they wouldn't just explode. They'd disappear in a flash of compressed space-time, like a very unfortunate science experiment. "Enjoying the view?" Darius jumped, spinning around to see Valara leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, ears twitching slightly. He scowled. "Can you not sneak up on me?" She smirked. "You used to have better reflexes." "Well, I used to have memories too, but here we are." Valara rolled her eyes and stepped into the room. "You always loved this part of the ship, spent hours tweaking the engines, trying to make it go faster. Even when I told you it was already illegally fast." Darius narrowed his eyes. "Wait, this was our ship?" She nodded. He looked around again. "Why does it feel like you stole it then?" "Because I did," she said, smiling sweetly. Darius rubbed his temples. "I don't even want to know." Valara stepped up beside him, glancing at the core. "We should be careful with this thing. It's unpredictable, especially with the modifications you made." Darius blinked. "I modified this?" "Oh, extensively." "That feels like something I should remember." Valara studied him for a moment. "It'll come back," she said softly. Darius wasn't so sure. Before he could respond, the ship's warning klaxons blared. Valara's expression hardened instantly. She turned and sprinted toward the cockpit, Darius right behind her. As they slid into their seats, the screens flared to life, displaying a proximity alert. Darius frowned. "What is that?" Valara's fingers danced over the controls, pulling up a visual feed. A ship, large, bulky, and bristling with weaponry, was emerging from FTL directly in their path. Darius let out a slow breath. "I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's not a friendly." Valara's jaw tightened. "That's a Zarosian warcruiser." Darius stared at her. "How do they keep finding us?" She exhaled sharply. "Because Zyros has technology that shouldn't exist. He can track things even through FTL." "Oh, fantastic." The comm system crackled to life. A deep mechanical voice spoke. Unidentified vessel. Power down and prepare for boarding. You are in violation of Lord Zyros's domain. Darius glanced at Valara. Well, that sounds unpleasant. Valara's eyes darkened. We can't let them board, Darius sighed. All right, options? She glanced at him. We could fight. He pointed at the war cruiser, which was many times their size. I don't love our odds, she considered. Or we could do something very, very stupid, Darius groaned. Why is it always the stupid option? Valara grinned and slammed the throttle forward. The ship lurched, rocketing toward the war cruiser at full speed. Darius flailed. What are you doing? Trust me. I barely know you. The war cruiser's weapons powered up, targeting systems locking onto them. Darius braced for impact, but at the last possible second, Valara yanked the controls down, sending them into a gut-wrenching spin beneath the enemy ship's hull. Darius yelped as the artificial gravity struggled to keep up. I'm gonna die! Valara, completely calm, angled the ship toward a ventral docking port. Then with a smirk, she hit a button. The ship suddenly vanished. Darius blinked. What just? Cloaking field, Valara said smugly. Old smuggler trick. Darius slumped in his seat. I hate this. I hate everything about this. She patted his shoulder. You'll get used to it again. The war cruiser, unable to detect them, drifted forward, scanning empty space. Valara eased the ship away, her expression triumphant. And that is how you lose a Zyrosian warship. Darius let out a breath. Okay, that was almost impressive. Valara winked. Oh, I'm always impressive. Darius groaned, rubbing his temples. Please tell me you at least have coffee on this ship. Valara hesitated. Darius frowned. You do have coffee, right? Valara cleared her throat. Your defined coffee. Darius stared at her. Oh my God, Valara smirked. Welcome back to the rebellion, love. Darius had survived a lot of things in the last 24 hours. Being thrown out of a window, dodging bounty hunters, and narrowly escaping a war cruiser piloted by people who apparently hated him. But now he was facing what might be the greatest challenge of all, Valara's cooking. He eyed the steaming, bluish-gray mush in his bowl. It smelled like something. He just wasn't sure if it was food or an industrial lubricant. Valara sat across from him, eating with zero hesitation. You gonna stare at it all day, or are you gonna eat? Darius prodded the substance with his fork. It jiggled. It moved. She rolled her eyes. It's protein paste. You used to love it. Darius arched a brow. See, I'm getting the distinct impression that past me was either a liar or had significantly lower standards for food. Valara smirked. Both things can be true. Darius exhaled dramatically, then took a tentative bite, and immediately regretted it. It wasn't just bad. It was offensive. The taste hit his tongue like it was trying to mug him. It was bitter, somehow also sour, and carried the unmistakable aftertaste of regret. He gagged. Oh no, nope, 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 nope. Valara laughed. Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Darius reached for his water like a man desperately trying to save his own life. It tastes like a tire fire in my mouth. Valara shrugged, taking another bite. You're being dramatic. I'm being accurate, she smirked. You always whined about food. Once, during a supply run, you refused to eat anything that wasn't labeled in Standard Galactic. Darius leaned back. Well, excuse me for not wanting to accidentally eat an alien parasite. She grinned. Good news, this isn't a parasite. Darius gestured at the bowl. That's not good news. Valara laughed again, shaking her head. Fine. Next time we land somewhere, I'll get you something properly disgusting. Darius sighed in relief. A burger. I just want a burger. Valara smirked. Fine. But first, we need to deal with your whole being hunted by a galactic warlord problem. Darius groaned. Oh, that minor inconvenience. Valara leaned forward, her tone growing more serious. We need to get you to a memory specialist. Darius frowned. A what? There's a woman, Valara explained. Dr. Leora Vesca. She's one of the best neurospecialists in the galaxy. If anyone can help recover what Zyros erased, it's her. Darius hesitated. And where is she? Valara exhaled. Voxus Prime. Darius blinked. then blinked again. Voxus Prime? The Voxus Prime? Valara nodded. Oh, sure, Darius said, throwing his hands up. Great idea. Let's go straight to the most corrupt, crime-infested hellhole in the entire galaxy. What could possibly go wrong? Valara smirked. You used to love Voxus. Darius let out an exasperated groan. Past me really needs to stop setting expectations I can't live up to. Valara chuckled. Relax. I have a contact there. Someone who can get us in without drawing attention. Darius sighed. I feel like I should argue, but I really want to know what's in my brain. Valara patted his shoulder. That's the spirit, he muttered under his breath. More like the spirit of terrible decisions. Voxus Prime came into view several hours later, a planet covered in sprawling, neon-lit megacities, shadowy underworlds, and absolutely no laws whatsoever. As they descended into the atmosphere, Darius couldn't help but stare out the viewport. Okay, I kind of get why past me like this place. Voxus was alive in a way few places were. Towering buildings stretched into the sky, covered in glowing holographic billboards. Ships zipped between them, weaving through the dense air traffic like an endless, chaotic ballet. Valara maneuvered them toward a less reputable district, a section of the city that looked like it hadn't seen proper maintenance in decades. Rusted landing platforms, flickering streetlights, and an overall vibe of definitely going to get robbed. Darius crossed his arms. So, let me guess, your contact is some kind of black market doctor? Valara smiled. Something like that, Darius sighed. Great, I love dealing with shady criminals. Valara landed the ship and powered it down. You'll be fine, Darius grumbled, but followed her out. They made their way through the crowded streets, dodging vendors selling probably illegal goods, cybernetic street thugs, and at least 3 different people trying to sell guaranteed immortality serums. Finally, they reached a dingy, unmarked building. Valara knocked twice, then stepped back. A slot in the door slid open. 2 glowing mechanical eyes peered out. A gravelly voice spoke. Password? Valara smirked. If I give you the password, do I get a discount? A pause, then, no. Valara sighed. Fine. Nova Eclipse. The door unlocked with a heavy thunk. Inside, the clinic was surprisingly clean. Sleek medical equipment, glowing monitors, and a faint sterile scent. It was a sharp contrast to the outside world. A woman in a long, high-collared coat turned from one of the monitors. She was tall with silver cybernetic implants running down the sides of her face and eyes that glowed with an eerie white light. Dr. Leora Vesca. She studied Darius for a long moment. So you finally found him? Valara nodded. Took long enough. Darius cleared his throat. Hello? Dr. Vesca smirked. You don't remember me, do you? Darius blinked. Should I? She chuckled. Number, but you used to owe me a lot of money. Darius groaned. Oh, fantastic. Valara grinned. We're here for something else. Vesca nodded. I know. Sit down. Darius hesitated. This isn't going to hurt, is it? Vesca smirked. Not physically. Darius groaned. That's not comforting. Valara patted his shoulder. You'll be fine. Darius sighed. You keep saying that. As he sat in the examination chair, he had a sinking feeling that this was going to be anything but fine. The problem with memory recovery, Darius quickly realized, was that it felt an awful lot like being punched in the brain by a very enthusiastic robot. Dr. Vesca had barely finished calibrating her equipment before she pressed a cold metallic device against his temple. The device whirred, beeped, then zapped him with something that felt like a cross between static electricity and getting smacked in the head with a frying pan. Darius yelped. Ow, what the hell? Vesca didn't even blink. Good, that means it's working. Darius shot Valara a glare. Define working. Valara, entirely too amused, simply leaned back in her chair. You're not dead. That's a good start. Vesca adjusted the controls on her holo display, completely ignoring Darius's suffering. Your neural pathways have been altered. Zyros didn't just erase your memories. He fragmented them, scattered them in non-sequential clusters. Darius groaned. That sounds bad. Veska shrugged. It's creative and incredibly illegal, even by Vox's prime standards. Valara smirked, which means we can assume Zyros has something to hide. Darius rubbed his temples. Fantastic. I love being a walking mystery. Veska tapped a few more buttons and suddenly, his vision exploded. Not literally, but it felt like it. One moment, he was sitting in a dimly lit clinic, and the next, he was somewhere else, somewhere cold. The air was thick with frost, his breath curling into mist as he exhaled. He stood in what looked like a massive underground bunker, dimly lit by eerie blue lights. Walls of metal and ice stretched into the darkness, and the distant hum of machinery filled the air. And in the center of the room was him, or at least another version of him. Darius staggered back. What the? The other him was kneeling, his hands gripping a control panel covered in alien symbols. He was breathing hard, his expression one of pure desperation. And behind him, a figure, Valara, but not this Valara. Her long ears twitched as she stepped toward him, her eyes glowing a deep, unnatural crimson. She was different, colder, more dangerous, and she was bleeding. Deep gashes ran along her arms, her sleek dark armor damaged, her breathing ragged. Darius, his past self, turned to her. We have to do this. It's the only way. Valara clenched her jaw. You don't know that. Past Darius gritted his teeth. We don't have time to argue. Valara stepped closer, grabbing his wrist. Listen to me. If you do this, you won't remember. Past Darius hesitated. I don't care. Valara's grip tightened. I do. And then, a pulse of energy. Everything shattered. Darius snapped back into reality so fast he nearly fell out of the chair. Veska raised an eyebrow. That was dramatic. Darius sucked in a sharp breath, heart hammering. What the hell was that? Valara was staring at him now, her expression unreadable. You saw something? Darius rubbed his face. Not just something. A memory, Veska nodded. Good. That means we're getting somewhere. Darius took a shaky breath. I was in a bunker, somewhere cold. There was a machine, some kind of control panel. And you, he looked at Valara, you were there, but you looked different. And we were arguing. Valara's eyes darkened slightly. About what? Darius hesitated. I think I was about to do something dangerous, something that would wipe my memory. Silence. Then Veska smirked. Well, that's juicy. Darius shot her a look. Oh, so glad you're entertained. Valara exhaled. If that's true, then Zyros didn't just erase your memories. You did. Darius felt a chill crawl up his spine. Why would I do that? Valara didn't answer. Veska, on the other hand, was typing away at her console. There's more buried in there. I can try pulling another fragment, but... Darius held up a hand. Hard pass on another brain punch, thanks. Veska shrugged. Suit yourself. Darius exhaled, leaning forward. So, what now? Valara crossed her arms. Now we find out where that bunker is. Darius raised an eyebrow. And then? Valara's expression was grim. Then we find out why you erased yourself. Darius sighed. Oh yeah, that sounds like a really fun adventure. Valara smirked. You used to love danger. Darius groaned. Seriously, past me needs to stop. Veska chuckled. Well, if you do survive this, try not to forget me again. I hate losing good customers. Darius rolled his eyes. I wasn't a customer. You literally just tortured me. Veska grinned. And I had a great time. Valara stood stretching. Come on, hero. Let's go find a frozen death trap. Darius muttered under his breath as he followed her out. He had the sinking feeling that things were about to get a lot worse before they got better. The ice cracked under Darius's boots as he and Valara stepped into the cavernous bunker. The air was thick with frost, their breath misting as they moved cautiously forward. Towering metal pillars lined the walls, some flickering with dim, failing lights. A vast control panel stretched across the room, its alien symbols pulsing with an eerie blue glow. Darius had been here before. He knew it now. Valara was silent beside him, her crimson eyes scanning the space with something between wariness and sorrow. Darius took a slow breath. All right, time for some answers. You want to tell me why I wiped my own memory? Valara hesitated, then stepped toward the console. Her fingers brushed the surface, and the interface reacted instantly, symbols shifting, pulsing. She turned back to him. This place, she said softly, was a vault. Your vault. Darius blinked. My what? She exhaled, crossing her arms. A storage facility for information, for weapons, for technology so dangerous that no one, not even you, should have access to it. Darius felt a pit form in his stomach. What kind of tech? Valara's gaze darkened. The kind that could wipe out civilizations. Darius whistled. Wow! So Past Me wasn't just reckless? He was ambitiously reckless. Valara shot him a look. It wasn't about ambition. It was about Zyros. Darius frowned. That bastard again. Valara nodded. He wanted what was in here. And you. She hesitated. You made a choice. She turned back to the console, tapping a few commands. A holographic image flickered to life above the controls. Darius sucked in a sharp breath. It was him. Or rather, a past version of him. Standing in this very room, looking battered, exhausted, and standing beside him, Valara. She looked just as she had in his fragmented memory. The recording crackled. We don't have much time, Past Darius said. His voice was rough, strained. Zyros is coming. If he gets this, if he gets me, the entire galaxy is screwed. Valara in the recording clenched her fists. There has to be another way. There isn't, Past Darius said. The only way to keep this from him is to lock it away. Lock me away. Darius felt his throat tighten. I erased myself. To protect the galaxy? Valara gave him a sad smile. It was the only way. Darius exhaled. Okay, but if I was such a self-sacrificing hero, why didn't I just die dramatically instead of pulling a self-imposed amnesia stunt? Valara smirked. Because you were a narcissist and liked the idea of a backup plan. Darius sighed. Sounds about right. The recording continued. Past Darius reached into his coat and pulled out a small, glowing device. Something that looked like a crystal but pulsed with energy. He pressed it against his temple, and a brilliant light flared. Then the recording cut out. Darius ran a hand through his hair. Let me guess. That crystal thing was my brain's self-destruct button? Valara nodded. A neural disruptor. It erased everything that connected you to this vault, to this knowledge. You became just another drifter. Darius groaned. And Zyros still wants me because... Valara crossed her arms. Because if you remember everything, you'll remember how to access the rest of what's in here. Darius exhaled. Right, of course, because life just has to be difficult. A new voice cut through the cavern. Oh, don't worry, it's about to get much worse. A deep mechanical hum filled the air. Darius and Valara spun just in time to see the entrance explode inward, shards of ice and metal flying as a towering figure stepped through the smoke. Zyros. The warlord was just as terrifying in person as Darius had imagined. 7 feet tall, his skin a dark obsidian metal sheen. Glowing red, cybernetic eyes locked onto them. His armor hummed with energy, his massive arms crackling with built-in plasma weapons. Well, Darius muttered, that's a lot of villain. Valara's hand flew to her weapon. Zyros. The warlord grinned. Valara, you've been very annoying. Darius raised a hand. For what it's worth, I'm also pretty annoyed. Zeros's gaze snapped to him. Ah, the lost man himself. Darius sighed. Yeah. Former genius, current confused idiot. What do you want? A reunion hug? Zyrus's grin widened. I want what's mine. Darius raised an eyebrow. See, I'm pretty sure this vault doesn't have a property of Zyros sticker on it. Zyrus's arm hummed, and a blast of plasma shot toward them. Valara yanked Darius aside just in time, the explosion scorching the ground where they'd been standing. Darius coughed. Okay, he's not here for negotiation. Valara pulled her gun, firing off several quick shots. Zyros deflected them with an energy shield, striding forward like an unstoppable force. Darius's brain raced. They couldn't win this fight head-on. They needed... He looked at the console, and an idea hit him. "Valara, cover me!" She hesitated, then nodded, diving behind cover and laying down suppressing fire. Darius sprinted for the control panel, skidding to a stop as he frantically scanned the interface. His past self had built this place, which meant there had to be a failsafe. There, a flashing emergency override. Darius slammed his hand onto it. A deep rumble shook the vault. Cyrus's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Darius grinned. "Let's just say I hit the eject button." The walls around them began to shift. Mechanical locks disengaged. The floor trembled. Then, a massive pulse of energy erupted from the console, sending a shockwave across the bunker. Zyros roared as his systems overloaded, sparks flying from his cybernetic limbs. He staggered back, his shield failing, his weapons flickering. Darius grabbed Valara's hand. "Time to go." They bolted for the exit as the vault's failsafe activated. The ground beneath Zyros collapsed, sending him plunging into the icy depths below. A final, echoing scream, then silence. Outside, Darius and Valara stumbled onto the snowy plains, breathing hard. The vault's doors sealed behind them, locking its secrets away once more. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Darius turned to Valara. "So? That was dramatic," she chuckled. "You always did have a flair for the absurd." Darius exhaled. "So, what now?" Valara studied him, then smiled. "Now? We live." Darius smirked. "Preferably with less amnesia next time." Valara grinned. "Deal." And together they walked into the unknown, this time with no more secrets between them.